Hey Eugene, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you so much for your time. So, first of all, in Finland, we actually get to see that it's the simple life that can put a smile on your face, and that family is most important, which is also something that you address throughout the show. And I was wondering because in the business that you and I are working in, a lot of people are willing to sacrifice what's important in order to have a career. And I was wondering if you ever actually had to remind yourself that yes, you're going to pursue the career you'd like to have, but without sacrificing what's important.
Well, it's always a bit of a conflict, especially, if you have to travel, which I did. You sometimes have to travel to different locations for movies. Uh,
Yeah.
I was fortunate in that at least, my wife and kids would come and visit, and spend some time. So I got to see them. Um, but I was also at home a lot in Toronto, uh,
Yeah.
where I live. I was fortunate to be able to spend a lot of time there and be home with my family as well, with my kids. Um, because it is always important. I think if I knew I had to travel to the degree that I would be away from my family more than I should be, I would have to seriously think about whether to take the job or not.
Right. Right. And I love that we get to see like different father-son relationships throughout the show, like for example in Venice and then in Utah, of course. And I was wondering, because you also tell us, that you actually had to learn to step back in order to allow your son to do whatever he needed to do as an artist. And I was wondering because I remember from my own family, that it can be really hard sometimes for parents to figure out the right moment to step back. And I was wondering if you do like remember what that moment was for you, the moment you realized that, okay, now is the perfect time to step back and to allow, my son to go on his own journey as an artist.
I think it happened in the first season of our show Schitt's Creek. I don't know whether you get that in whether that
Yes,
is
yes, we've had it.
yeah.
Switzerland, yeah,
Well,
we had it.
yeah. So that was it, and we started out. I mean, I always thought my job was to mentor my son as a writer, um, and what he was doing in front of the camera as an actor was. I mean, I couldn't do much to necessarily coach him, but it was more as a kind of a writer, and when I realized. Um, as we're early on into our first season, I realized what he was doing as a writer was really on the money. And, I didn't necessarily have to be there to mentor. He had it down. So that was at a point where I said, you know what, I can now step back and let him kind of do it. We were both in the writing room when the show started, but he quickly showed me that he can take over the room and handle the room, and his ideas were great. So
Wow.
um, that's when it happened.
That's awesome. And Eugene, my last question to you will be like, because I really love the moment in Utah where Milo and you were having a discussion about feeling significant or insignificant while looking at the stars.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that is actually something that you were able to take with you, out from Utah into your everyday life. And if so, what would you say is it that can make you feel more significant today than insignificant?
I think it's just kind of going into yourself, looking at yourself and having having confidence in who you are. That kind of creates a significance. uh to me, um, without necessarily being too self-conscious,
Hmm.
all the time. Um, and what the one thing I took away from that was, considering all the hardship that these people, the Navajo and all indigenous people had to
Yeah.
go through over the last, 500-600 years. That attitude about, feeling significant and kind of keeping a very positive outlook on life was that meant a lot to me. That kind of hit home because the fact that they could kind of endure what they had to endure and still have that kind of philosophy
Yeah.
was a bit of an eye opener for me. It meant a lot.
Wow, that's awesome. Seriously, Eugene, I want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your thoughts with me, and obviously, all the best for your show.